Hi guys, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and today we're going to be looking at the SU-85I, which has come onto the store today, and it's essentially the SU-76I with a bigger gun and a few little differences underneath. The armour is the same as the SU-76I, but unfortunately, unlike the SU-76I, this is a tier 5, not a tier 3, and it does get preferential matchmaking though, so it only sees up to tier 6. But whereas the SU-76I, when it's top tier, you can be quite aggressive in it because it's got a very bouncy hull. This is not so much so. This does fulfill the more traditional tank destroyer role. But we'll have a quick look at it in the store first. Before we get on to talking about it. Right, so you've got a fully loaded pack, and that is the only one, basically. It comes with the crew, a camouflage net, binocular telescope, gun lane drive, usual mix of shells, 1 garage slot, and 3 days of premium, and no ace op, which is a bit disappointing, although it's not too savage, I suppose. Oh, I did forget to say how much it was, actually. I do apologise. It's 4,500 gold, which I know you get 3 days of premium and a garage slot, but it is a little bit pricey. Its listed price in the Tankopedia is 2,300 gold. So, you know, it's nearly double the price. I must admit, I'm finding it difficult to say that it's really worth it at that price. I think that is quite expensive, and it's only just now, when I'm looking at the Tankopedia, that I realised, yeah, just how much it was. So that's a bit of a ball ache. Anyway, it's got 380 hit points, and like I say, it's essentially the SU-76I, the same sort of thing. It's the captured Panzer IIIs. With a box shoved on top instead of a turret, and an 85mm gun instead of a 76 that's on the SU-76I. Hull armour is 60 on the front, 30 on the sides, 50 on the rear, just like the 76I. Now, there are some differences between this and the standard SU-85 at tier 5. This has got thicker physical armour. The SU-85 I think has 45 front, sides and 40 on the rear. Although, so, yeah, the SU-85 does have thicker side armour, and this gets a bigger view range, and it's got much better hull traverse as well. It is very manoeuvrable, actually. Nothing's gonna, I don't think anything's going to be able to get around behind you without you spinning around and shooting it, although, you know, your armour's not particularly good. Let's have a look at the actual gun first. So, it's, like I say, an 85mm. Now, there are differences here to the SU-85, the tech tree one. Now, that gets 25 more penetration on the standard round, so that's got 144 as opposed to the 119 here, and 20 more damage, average damage at 180, this gets 160. But that gets a rate of fire of 10 rounds a minute. This has got a rate of fire of 13.33. Penetration on the premium ammunition is 161, again with 160 damage, and then 43 and 280 for your HE shells. Aiming time at 2.3 seconds. Now that is the same as the standard SU-85, fully upgraded. Now the accuracy is 0.42, which is not as good as the normal SU-85, sorry, which I think is something like, I want to say 0.33, but that seems a bit too good for a Russian gun, if you see what I mean. Oh, wrong one. There we go. That'd help. 0.34. So actually, no, that's not bad for a Russian gun. However, the SU-85I does actually get quite a good view range, really, when you consider that the SU-85, the tech tree one, is 280 meters. That's fully upgraded. This gets 330, so that's not bad. And I think fully upgraded, the standard SU-85 gets something like 35 or 36 degrees of traverse, and this gets 48, which is pretty good, to be honest. And the view range is about average for the tier. There are some that are slightly better, some slightly worse, but it is very good considering that the tech tree tier 5 Russian tank destroyer is only 280. Having said that, equipment wise, I've kept the ones that came with it, which is the camouflage net, the binocular telescope, and the gun lane drive, and I think they work best for how you need to play this tank. And like I say, that is the traditional tank destroyer role. It's fast enough though to get into, you know, to get into an early position and set up for sniping, really, and then you just drop back and fall back, and, you know, you're fast enough to get away and get to another position to shoot from, which I'm just getting to grips with in this. Now, round costs: 109 for your standard armor piercing, 2,800 for your APCR, and 98 for your high explosive. And crew skills, this is the crew that I've been running in my SU-85I, and I use for most of my tank destroyers, actually, my premium Russian ones. So I've got Sixth Sense, I've got Muffled Shot, Camouflage, and I've also got Situational Awareness. I am retraining Clutch Braking, which was mostly for the SU-85I and the 122-44. But yeah, stuff like, I mean, with this one in particular, they would be good skills to go for. Also, possibly Green Thumb. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. Maybe Brothers in Arms. I think they're basically the best ones for this one, with it being more of a traditional tank destroyer. Is your Sixth Sense, your Camouflage, your Green Thumb, your Muffled Shot, maybe Silent Running, possibly Clutch Braking or off-road driving, just to improve your terrain resistances slightly, maybe. I don't know. Anyway, let's have a look at the modules and the armour. Well, it's got a 300 horsepower engine, which I think is the same as the 76i. It does have a slightly better power to weight ratio, so it might be a little bit more. That's, I think, 13.13, and this is 13.42, so it does power along quite nicely. It's got a 50 km/h top speed, and it does feel nippy, and with the good traverse, you know, it really has got quite good handling, and things, you know, will often quite, you know, when I can get my words out, things will often try and get around behind you, and if they haven't already killed you, you are quick enough to spin around and put a couple of shells back into them without letting them behind you. Like I say, 50 km/h top speed, 14 in reverse, which isn't too bad, and a 20% chance of fire, and it's a big old engine block just towards the back of the tank, really below the sort of back of the upper superstructure, up until the well, where it starts to slope down. Big gun at the front. You do have a big gun mantle, but we'll look at that in the armour. Like I say, 2.3 second aiming time and 0.42 accuracy. It does have really good gun elevation though at 25 degrees, but quite poor depression at only -5. But with the 25 degrees of elevation, you don't have to worry about if anything's above you. You can shoot at it, and you can reverse up sort of slopes and put yourself behind trees. There's a lot of places on the maps where there's trees going up a slope, and you can get yourself up that slope, and you can actually get your gun up straight to shoot out across. And sometimes that can be an alright position, although do be aware you are exposing a lot of the top of your tank, which is very, very weak when you do that, so you want to make sure you're well out of spotting range. 48 degree traverse, like I've said before. Terrain resistances 1.1 and 2.1. Radio is down in the base of the hull, down on the actual floor of the hull itself, and just behind the tracks on the left hand side as you're looking at the tank, or obviously it's right. Ammunition, you've got a couple of decent sized blocks towards the back of the upper superstructure. You've got a bigger one, well, a bigger side profile one on the left hand side of the tank, which is more or less basically anywhere through the tracks, underneath the rear half of the upper superstructure. And then obviously this one on this side as well, which is quite a nice one to hit if you're shooting at it from an angle. Crewman, well, you have got a dirty great commander's cupola on this thing. It does remind me of the bit of a tumor turret on top of the M3 Lee. That's the one. The words escaped me, they didn't want to come out of my mouth. Dirty tank. But yes, a bloody dirty great commander's cupola on here with your commander sat in it, driver down in the front, and then your gunner and your loader obviously sat up in the superstructure itself. Armour wise, well, basic figures were 60, 30, 50, and that's pretty much what you get, to be honest. You've got 1 to 20mm, which is your tracks, the floor of the hull, and the whole top of the engine deck, top of the superstructure, and the top of the commander's hatch. 21 to 30, which is basically the sides of the tank, the sides of the upper superstructure, I don't know what to call it, the bit under the commander's hatch that sticks out, that seems to be 21 to 30 as well, and also the back of the upper superstructure and a strip just across the back side of the tank there. 31 to 50mm, well, that's the flatter parts of the rear of the vehicle, a thin strip around the base of the upper superstructure, the front part of that bit underneath the commander's hatch, and the sloped part of the upper superstructure, along with the what I would call the sort of front plate and the upper front plate, but that does have quite a nice slope to it, and most of the gun mantle as well, and it is a big gun mantle. And then you've got 51 to 70, which is the flat strip across where the driver's hatch is and just surrounding the actual gun mantle itself. But like I say, that commander's hatch is between 21 to 30, and it is a bloody great weak spot. And a lot of, yeah, I'd say a lot of the time you have the trouble that you have with the M3 Lee, where people will see that before you can actually get your gun to bear on them. So do bear that in mind. You are fairly stealthy though. When you're stationary with 0.36 concealment and moving is 0.22, so it's not a bad sort of machine stealth wise. You know, you can nip about and get away with things if you use your terrain cleverly, and I think that about covers it. Oh, signal range 525 meters, which isn't too bad, because I think, and I'm gonna have to check this, the standard SU-85 is a bit less than that, but watch me prove myself wrong. No, it's exactly the same, 525 meters, so yeah, there you go. Anyway, I think that's about it, so we'll just get into the replays and see how this thing actually handles. So here we are for the first of the 3 replays tonight, and it's Overlord, the new map. It's a tier 5 match and it's a standard battle. And I did forget to mention in the garage the silver and XP bonuses, which are 30% silver and 40% XP bonus. Now, I'm just going to get this out of the way. Like I say, this plays very much like a traditional tank destroyer. You have got a very big, tough gun mantle. It's very bouncy, but on the same side of the tank, because the gun is slightly off centre, you have a dirty grey commander's cupola, so you can either hide more of your hull or you can hide part of your commander's cupola, you know, by peeking around a corner or sticking up to a building, that sort of thing. But at range, especially against lower tier tanks, you can actually bounce a few shots, especially at range, and this is how you want to keep this thing, I find. Like I say, traditional tank destroyer role, you want to be using other people to spot for you. Like I say, it does have a fairly, you know, it's a lot bigger than the standard SU-85 on the view range, and with the binoculars that does go up a little bit. I've got situational awareness on it as well, so that will put it up even more. But use other people to spot for you. You need to out-spot your enemies, and the further away you are, the better in this tank, in my opinion. Other people may have look in it in different ways, but I feel, and I've had the most success keeping at a distance. Now, I personally don't really care for the more traditional tank destroyer type of role, you know, hanging back. No, I'm not going to say camping, but it kind of is in a way. But I mean, with this, you want to basically, you know, you take your shots and you relocate. And that's how you want to try and play it, and that's how I've been trying to play it towards the end. And in fact, you'll see that in the 3rd replay that I'm picking it up a bit more. And because you can get away with a little bit in this, like you can see, you know, the first one bounced, next one penetrated, you know, with them shooting at me. I mean, they are lower tiered tanks, but I kind of feel that, especially with its good mobility and manoeuvrability, that it almost makes a good tank to train in for that style of gameplay, you know, for the more traditional tank destroyer gameplay, striking from a distance. And it might have 20 less damage than the Tech Tree SU-85, but it fires 3 rounds or more, well, 3 rounds a minute quicker than that, so it can dish out the damage just as well, you know, like I say, missing 20 per shot, but it soon adds up when you've got a much faster rate of fire like that. But yeah, like I say, I do kind of feel like it's a good training vehicle for that style of gameplay, and this was satisfying. I've been killed by so many of those things in my SU-85I that hit one in this and take off a massive chunk of his health was quite satisfying, I must admit. But yeah, like I say, I'm not really too fussed about this style of gameplay. I much prefer to get in there in your fast mediums or things like the Motherland, you know, your sort of heavy mediums, and sometimes your heavies. I do like playing the heavies. Well, I like playing a lot of tanks, but like I say, I'm not overly keen on this style of gameplay, and I'm not very good at it. I'll be the first one to admit that. But at least you'll get a sense of what the tank's like, and sort of what it, you know, what it can be capable of in better hands than mine. Although, again, as these sort of clips go on, I think my gameplay in it does get better. So, and that's why I think that it kind of is a decent little training tank for that. It can be a bit forgiving if you get a bit too close. Well, not too close, but yeah, you know what I mean. And I feel that it does play, and it does remind me a lot of the SU-122S in some respects. I mean, this is, you know, a bit quicker and more manoeuvrability, but sort of very similar play style. But with that one, I still struggle. But with this, I've seemed to get a bit better in it. And like I say, it's that little bit more forgiving. Although I could just be talking out my backside. But anyway, but yeah, it's not bad actually. I wasn't overly keen on it, but I thought I'll do a review of it. I'll not let you guys down. And do you know, it's not bad. Like I say, it's alright. And I can imagine if you really do like this sort of play style, the more traditional tank destroyer role, I can imagine you're doing very well in a tank like this. Anyway, I've not really commentated much. We did take care of the guys on the beach, but they were low tiers. And I'm just popping up here to try and lend a hand to whoever I can. And we've got an AT2. I've got just enough to get through the side, but it does seem to keep bouncing, I think. Oh no, that one went through. Oh no, it's because I've been a scrub load and changed to APCR. Well, who cares? It's an AT2, that's my excuse. And hopefully one more, yeah, should just finish him off. And now there's only RT, and he's going to make a run for it, and he's going to get absolutely mobbed. And as you can see, you know, not the best round, not the worst round, but I don't know, it's kind of, like I said, I just didn't see the appeal of that sort of, you know, really staying back. I do like to get stuck in, but this little thing is almost changing my mind. It has been a fun tank to play, and like I said, I wasn't looking forward to it, but I've been pleasantly surprised, and it's always nice when that happens. It's much better than when it happens the other way around, when you're really looking forward to something and it's just a massive, you know, massive. That was a cross between major and massive. Massive disappointment. But not too bad. 1400 XP, 838 damage done. I got 3 points towards the op and came in third with a couple of kills as well. Didn't fire that many shots. 7 fired, 7 hit, 6 penetrated. So, not a bad hit rate, you know, not a bad hit ratio. But yeah, like I said before, I can imagine if this is your sort of play style, I can imagine you're doing quite well in this tank. It was quite a pleasant little surprise. That extra little bit of fire rate really does sort of help out. And even though a lot of the front is flat and it's not overly thick, like I said before, your gun mantle is quite big and it is quite bouncy. It's just that that's a very difficult weak spot to manage, that commander's cupola. It is quite large. I mean, at a distance it's hard to hit. You know, if you're sort of at the more extreme render range, then it is hard to hit. And to be honest, at that sort of range, the stuff you're going to come up against isn't going to see you anyway if you're using somebody else to spot for you. With preferential matchmaking, do you know, I could imagine a couple of these in a platoon and maybe some Panzer Hydros, you know, the Panzer IV Hydro, because they've got preferential matchmaking as well. Or maybe platoon it up with some tier 4s, a couple of these and 3 sort of tier 4 mediums, or a couple of heavies, and have 1 or 2 of these in support. I can imagine that being quite a force to be reckoned with, actually, because it's, you know, it's not the fastest fire rate, but coupled with 160 alpha damage, which isn't, you know, it's definitely not too shabby. For instance, this tier 5 tank destroyer has 380 hit points. So, you know, I think in theory it's theoretically possible, if you get 2 high rolls, to probably 2-shot one of these with one of these. Now, the other problem I have with this sort of playstyle, like I said, I don't do it very often, although this has changed my mind a little bit, but I don't know where to go on the maps. I've got a general idea and a rough idea of where to go, but because I don't play this sort of tank very often, you know, the more traditional tank destroyer, I get on a map and I'm like, where do I go? And I'll start rushing off to where I'd normally go in a medium or a heavy, and I have to stop myself, think, hang on a minute, I'm not in a medium or a heavy. But this is a place where I've come to in mediums before, the faster ones as well as some of my light tanks. You can get some spotting down into the valley sometimes of the enemy tanks. You've got a bit of foliage cover on the hill as well if you park yourself up, and you can get shots across where I put some shots into that KV-1. Now he did fire back, and I'm pretty sure it hit, but I don't know if my tracks ate it or if it bounced. That one definitely went in though, and it damaged my gun as well. But he was only going to take one more shot from me, and I would have definitely got that off before him. And, you know, before that other guy came along and gave me a hand, I didn't really have much of a viable option for pulling back either. Now I'm going to manoeuvre a bit more. There seems to be a lot of our team over towards the other side of the map, towards the eastern side, and it's looking a bit sparse down here, and we don't want anything to, you know, sometimes there is a bit of an enemy push over this way. It doesn't look like there's too much of one this time. We're going to get shot in the soil. No, not quite. And now I'm going to spin it round, and I was just wondering if there was going to be anything else on that corner like there normally is. And then I think it might be about this time I decide, do you know what, bugger it, I'm going to put the pressure on. I'm going to sit in cap with my camouflage net and my binoculars, and I'm going to put the pressure on, and if anything comes back to try and reset, hopefully I'll be able to spot it before it spots me. And that's exactly what I go and do. Look at me being tactical. That doesn't happen very often. I normally have all sorts of plans and tactics in the after view, but in a game, just brain fart, drive around, shoot things, get killed. And that's about it really. And yeah, that was a bit of an oh shit moment. Pop round the corner, DW2 and an RT. Somebody takes out the RT, and then I realise the DW2 is bouncing off me. And I notice it's a tier 4, but that was quite nice that it was just bouncing away there. And that's what I seem to have found with this tank. It, you know, don't rely on the armour, like say, traditional tank destroyer. But every now and again it'll just surprise you, and it'll be such a pleasant little surprise just when you know, when you need it. He could have taken a good chunk of my health away there if he'd have penned me, but he just bounced away. Now I've made it to the enemy base. There's not as many tanks left as there were when I was on my way down here, but I've just dispatched one. Somebody dispatched artillery at the same time. But now, well, there's a medium that looks like it come back on the map. Two other tanks are well over the other side of the over the hill down in the valley where our base is. But even if both of them got in there, they could possibly outcap me. But I don't think that both of them are going to get to base in time. And even if they do rush for base, there's still enough of our guys left to possibly go and reset. Now, I was just trying to figure out which way that panzer might come, so I can point myself in that direction, let my camo net and binoculars pop up again, and I'll spot him. There he is. You can either go to the right or the left as I'm looking at it, and now our artillery, or one of them's come to join me in cap. And there's only two left. There's the Panzer T-25. In fact, there's just the Panzer T-25 left. And here he comes over the hill, and I saw him first. Well, somebody else spotted him first, but I shot him first. And there we go. Not a bad little match. I don't think I did masses of damage, but it was a good fun match, and it was nice to get that win. Oh, not bad. Not too savage. 1129 with 1600 XP and 220 blocked, which was quite pleasant. And an invader medal, which I've not had for an age. Yeah, I can't remember the last time I got an invader medal, to be honest. Well, it came third on the leaderboard, but I really don't mind. It was a fun match. We got the win. I put the pressure on by going into the cap, and it was a bit of a fun match, really. like I say, it was a pleasant surprise against that DW2. I really expected him to punish me for just hammering it down there towards the cap willy-nilly. That's a term you've not used for a while. I don't know why that popped into my head. Willy-nilly. I guess that's what you get for having kids. All of these old phrases that you've probably not heard since you were a kid start coming out again when you're trying not to swear. Anyway, last replay of the night, and this again was a fun match. It's not one where I did a tremendous amount of damage, but I feel I'm getting better in this tank, and hopefully over these replays it's just giving you an idea of what it could do, and like I said before, just what somebody who's a lot better at this style of gameplay than I am could do with this tank. But again, this was kind of a fun match, and I was just getting into that way of thinking with these types of tank destroyers of getting an early spot in position. I think I'd been checking out the view range a bit more, and I don't know, I think I got confused with it before, and I thought it was a really low view range, but then when I looked and it was, turned out to be fairly average for the tier, it made me play it a bit differently. But I've come up for an early spot in location. Oh, did I say we're on Overlord? Tier 5 match. Standard battle. Take some shots, pull back, retreat, and basically relocate. And yeah, I think I'm getting to grips with it, and it's, like I say, it's a nice little tank for doing that. It's nippy enough, it's like I say, very manoeuvrable. If you do get in a bit of a spot, it's very difficult for other tanks at the tier to outmaneuver you. Now, I do realise that these have all been tier 5 matches, but it's not so much like the SU-85I where, in a tier 3 match you can be really aggressive, in a tier 4 you've got to play it safe. With this one, you basically play it the same whether you're in tier 5 or a tier 6 match. The only difference is in tier 6 you'll probably have to fire a few APCR just to compensate for that slightly lower penetration. Now, as you saw, I went to my early spotting position. These guys came up on my left flank. I managed to drop back over the hill. I did take a shot. I was a bit lax at sort of getting back, and basically used the terrain, used the concealment of this thing, so it is quite good. Skirted around, pulled back and sat behind this bush. And if you'll see, I'm sat further back from the bush. For those of you that don't know, your bush, this sounds wrong. Bushes, not your bush, bushes have a concealment rating, and as long as you're sat in that bush, you're not moving, you're not firing, it will retain, well, I don't know about moving, but it will retain its concealment bonus. As soon as you fire, it loses its concealment bonus for so many seconds until it comes back up again. Now, if you sit around 15 meters behind the concealment and fire through it, it doesn't lose its concealment bonus. So as long as you're far enough away, they won't spot you. If they're 50 meters the other side, they're going to spot you. But anything, well, it depends on your tank's concealment rating. But yeah, you can fire through the bush, and as you can see, those guys that was shooting at the T-34, I think I was probably within their spotting range, but they couldn't actually see me. And if you want to know how you're 15 meters behind it, a general rule is when you're looking through your sniper scope, not zoomed in like this, but when you can actually see your gun barrel, if the bushes are see-through, you're not far enough behind. So when they're opaque or not see-through, you are generally far enough behind. Now, I've managed to pick off a few tanks there, gave a bit of support. It wasn't quite enough though, because the friendlies did die, and I don't think I was spotted. I think they were basically, they saw my tracer fire, so they knew roughly where I was, put a shot in, hit me, so I just pulled back, and now I'm going to try and relocate. And this is where my unfamiliarity with this map, because I've been on it 3 times today, and in total I've been on it 4 times, so I think it is. So I'm really not familiar with this map, and I actually thought that from here, and I did misjudge this, that I could see into the cap circle from there and cover it, but I don't know if it was too far back or it was the terrain. And again, I'm looking at the map, I'm looking where I am, and I'm thinking, well, surely I should be able to see into the cap circle from here. But I'm not familiar with it, and I don't know if I've been a bit too hard on myself. I think I really cocked it up there and possibly lost this match. And if I'd have been a bit more familiar with it, I'd have known there's a bloody house in the cap circle and a bit of a rise in the middle that would prevent me from seeing back there and would hide a tank. So it's a bit unfortunate, but these things do happen. It's a new map. I've not really been on it before, and I know I shouldn't have really rushed around the corner, but I just needed to get one shot into one of them, and that could have been a win. But it was a fun match. Like I say, I'm getting to grips with that sort of style of gameplay. You know, you take your shots, you drop back, you relocate, and yeah, I think it's a decent little tank actually. It's not too bad. Like I say, not my favourite playstyle, but if it is your favourite playstyle, sorry, I nearly dropped my phone then. If it is, you know, it is your favourite playstyle, then yeah, I'd possibly give it a go. I think you might like it. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's episode. I hope it's been useful for you and entertaining, and maybe being able to help you make up your mind as to whether you want to buy this tank or just give it a miss. And no video tomorrow because it's Saturday, but I'll be back on Sunday, possibly with another random destruction. Anyway, as always, take care out there, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.